Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Life by Design podcast. On this week's episode, I talk with two of my closest friends, Janoah van Kekem and Evan Spargo. With the three of us having recently completed the 10-day silent meditation, more commonly known as Vipassana, we take a deep dive into our own experience of it. We talk about the breakthroughs, the darker moments, what actually happens in Vipassana, our biggest takeaways, and much, much more. Enjoy the episode. Now, guys, before we start this week's episode of the podcast, I want to talk to you about the Life by Design Mastermind. The Life by Design Mastermind is the mastermind for go-getters and high achievers who are looking to create a more successful, fulfilling, and balanced life by design. If you're serious about transforming your life, achieving your goals, and living a life on your terms, then the Life by Design is your golden ticket. Head over to the show notes and click on the link for more details about the program. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got two fine specimens on the podcast today. Janoah van Kekem, you might have heard his name before. You might have also heard of Evan Spargo. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Oh, hello, Blake Worrell Thompson, Evan Spargo.
Hey. Happy New Year, boys.
Happy New Year. We had a fourth amigo, Evan's beautiful girlfriend, Bree, but they had a bit of trouble, so she's not going to be able to make it today. Just the boys.
The boys.
And we're talking about Vipassana as well. For those that don't know, the three of us have done Vipassana in the last 2 months, give or take. And it's wild. And today we're going to talk about our different experiences, what came up, what was good, what was bad, what was very ugly. And for those that don't know, Vipassana is a 10-day silent meditation retreat. All three of us went to different locations, all at different times. And today we're going to rip in. Spargs, you can kick off, my friend. How would you describe your Vipassana experience?
Very simply, life-changing. It's funny how I had so much resistance against going towards it. And it was actually Bree's idea to go and do it. And I just fought hard. I was just like trying to put it off. I knew I needed to do it deep down, but it was shit scary. So a lot of resistance, but I'm glad I committed. And funnily enough, it's the ego that allowed me to commit to it because I couldn't let Bree do it and not myself do it. So the ego prevails in this sense, which is great. And it was just life-changing. I went in with a simple intention of what is my purpose and what am I going to do for my career moving forward, because I was so lost. And I got that and more. Just going through that experience, not only from a healing perspective, being able to confront a lot of deep-seated wounds and everything coming to the surface and facing it, but at the same time on the other side of it is gaining the clarity that I really needed for the next stage in my life. And the clarity I got has just fueled me since then. And I've never been clearer in my career, and I'm getting results immediately as a result of it. So very exciting. And yeah, let's start from there.
I'll tell you what, I've been saying it and I've been talking it up till I've been black and blue in the face about clarity when it comes to the Vipassana, and obviously I'm a big fan of psychedelics as well. There is a perfect example. Bree was the same, wasn't she? The amount of clarity that she had around her purpose.
Yep. That's we both got it.
This irritates me and it excites me at the same time, because it is 10 days of pain, and none of us are going to deny that there isn't pain involved. But if you are seeking your purpose and you have spent years on the treadmill of like a half-hearted life, 10 days of pain's worth it. What day did it kick in for you? What day did it drop and land for you?
Yeah, day 5, found the first day or two, a lot of superficial thoughts, noticed just coming and going. And then it hit day 3 and 4 where some more of the wounds and the healing started to begin. And then day 5, because there was just no distractions, I had this beautiful connection, probably the strongest connection I've ever had with my intuition. And I'd ask myself questions and I'd get the answer straight away. And it was so clear. And that's when I asked the question, like, what am I meant to do for the rest of my life? Or what is I meant to do now for my career, my purpose? And it just dropped in. It just dropped in beautifully, this loud voice. And I just continued asking it questions. And then it's basically given me the roadmap moving forward from here. So it was roughly around halfway through where all my answers dropped in. But then as the days went on, more healing had to happen because, just I wasn't prepared for the next few days of just the onslaught of painful memories. I actually got a interview with the head, I don't know what they call him, the head teacher or whatever of the Vipassana. And I just said to him, is it normal for me on day 8, day 9 to be having these types of thoughts? And he's like, this is normal. And this is the best place for you to do it and to heal. So I was like, okay, fair enough. And then just led me back to the practice to work through it. So yeah.
Janoah Van Kekem, a little bit about your experience, brother.
So in terms of purpose, for me, that actually had more dropped in. The first piece that had really dropped in a mushroom journey I did a few months before, and that had started to shift some things for me. And funny enough, there was a level of, how often when you are booked in for something, it starts working beforehand. And for me, things already started to shift beforehand, and leading into the Vipassana, I already stopped like pushing my business as it was. I just like Instagram, emails, the usual, posts and all that kind of stuff. There was a deeper knowing. I was like, it's time to let that go. It's going to shift here. And I didn't actually go in with the intention of showing my purpose. I kind of felt like it had already become quite clear to me, but I was like, what do I need to know? Like, what's holding me back? And for me, I would say I spent about 80% of my time in the craving or the fantasy land, but it didn't feel like a deluded fantasy. It felt more like a vision of knowing. It's like, this is what's going to play out if you can actually step into it. And it's all very realistic. And it was literally me sitting going, and about 20% of my time was spent in, I would say, the negative or undesirable stories. So to be honest, it was a much different swing than I expected. I expected to have a lot more of the dark, a lot more of, while yes, there was physical pain, like I was in agony at some times, like I thought my ankle was going to break. I still didn't get dark. There was no real darkness around it. It was just like, this is what I'm here for. Like, let's go. And it showed me where I can go to mentally. And I was like, I went to places where I just sat through it. I was like, well, I almost disconnected, like, fuck, my ankle might break, whatever. And that was pretty cool to like, I tapped into another level of mental determination, and I was like, okay, that's there. That's cool. And for me, what it gave me was there were some core themes, like just clear themes that are holding me back. And it stemmed back to something that isn't new to me, and it's not new to either of you, around this chosen piece of me, this fear of not being chosen. And it was just so clear that what's holding me back is because there is this underlying fear of me not being chosen, I don't go all in, right? Whether it's in biz or in relationships, there's even if I consciously think that I kind of am, there's been a little, like a foot still halfway out just to protect me in case it doesn't work or I get rejected or whatever that may be. And it's like, And then the flip side was that most of my, I guess, fantasy or the visions of things that are going to play out if I step into it were of the same. They were like the flip side of the not being chosen, which was me being significant and valued. So it was so clear to me. I was like, this is my piece. It's this piece around if I can move beyond what's holding me back out of this underlying fear of not being chosen. As soon as I step into that, it just fucking goes. Because I remember I even tapped back to, and this hasn't always been around. Like I've been through phases in my life where that fear hasn't been there. It was almost been a bit of a, that wild arrogance, kind of like, just go in. And I was almost overconfident, and things have fucking gone for me. And it's almost like I've become a little bit more careful. Like the last sort of 5 years, I've become a little bit more careful, a little bit more like hesitant on certain things, and a little bit of a protection sort of come up more than I used to have. And it's shown where things haven't quite gone, right where I'd like them to. And so it was really, really clear of like I mean, obviously significance is a core need for a lot of humans, but that's quite a strong one for me to sort of overcome what's come up with this fear of not experiencing that in different areas of my life. So it was really clear, and it was just nice to sort of see that. And what I saw was like what my life looks like when I step into it. And I was like, it's a pretty fucking good life. And it's not very far from where I am. Like it's literally so close. Just that last little, like, this is the little piece of the puzzle for me. And since then I did a bit of parts work on that as well, like IFS with good old local parts genius Megs. And it was really cool to see this, like this sort of scared, shaking version of me who's scared of being not chosen, rejected, undervalued, etc. And so that was the clarity I got. So I'd already kind of understood what my purpose is and what my business is going to look like, and I'd already started letting things go to sort of sit with it. This is actually the underlying block of you actually stepping into it, which has been, which is clear to see.
So you boys have given a bit of a insight into your experience. To take it back a step, Spargs, can you give the guys a rundown of the like day to day, just so people can understand what actually happens over the course of the 10 days?
Yeah. So to put it frankly, you've got 10 hours of meditation a day. So you're up at 4:30 in the morning and they ring this bell. So you have to get up, and you've got 2 hours of meditation. Now you can either stay in your room or you go to the meditation hall. Then you've got breakfast for about an hour and a half. Again, a couple of meditations, lunch, again, another 4 hours of meditation. Then you've got dinner, and you've got what's it called again? Those classes at
Discourse.
The discourse, yeah. And then you've got another meditation, and then you're in bed. So that was literally every single day. The best thing about it was that you knew what was coming. It's like the structure was unbelievable and allowed you to relax and really ease into yourself and really go hard into these meditations. Hence, I reckon that was one of the ways that we were able to heal, was because knowing that we had structure and that we could dive deep in. So that was our every day. And then it wasn't until about day 4 when they introduced, which is what you were talking about before, Jay, is the hour of strong determination, where we have to sit in a position for an hour and not move. So you can't move your seated position and your hands or your arms. So you can move around a little bit, but you have to stay in that place that you choose at the start. And that was one of the most excruciating experiences I've had. But yeah, I don't know if you want to get into that yet, but yeah, that was a wild experience going through that and just showing how strong and resilient we can be. Because when I first started doing that, I was like, within 10 minutes, like, what the fuck am I doing? How am I going to get through this? I'm already thinking of ways to escape. I'm going to get a chair. I'm going to start doing this. Every way of getting out of it. And then something clicked and I was like, oh, I've got all this power and all this determination, and I just got through it. Ended up getting through the whole thing without moving. So that was our day to day.
I'll be honest, I did not get through the whole thing without moving. Janoah and I have had a brief chat about this. So there's two schools of thought. Janoah kind of touched on them briefly before. Is when you actually go into the Vipassana practice on day 4, he talks about cravings and he calls them aversions, things that you don't want to feel. Cravings is that nice, blissful state that you can get in, but also practicing non-attachment to either. I had 0 cravings. I did not experience a moment of bliss. I was itchy as fuck for 6 days straight, and I could not sit still perfectly for the hour blocks. It was like I had thousands of ants crawling out my fucking skin straight for an hour, which is ironic because I'm in a much better place than the last time I did it. And last time I had a lot of blissful moments of just deep bliss, like just pure bliss. None, not one this time. So those hours were long, and I I itched. I itched my face. I itched my leg. I just itched, which became really apparent to me that this inner restlessness and this inner irritability that I've known that I have, and it is projected constantly out onto the world. It was like the first time I really understood it on a experiential level. Like I was like, okay, I've known this, but now I know it on an experiential level. So that was good insight, albeit super frustrating. Um, Jay, what did you notice about like the structure? What did you find hard? What did you find easy in terms of the 10 hours of meditating a day for 10 days?
So before I touch on that, I just wanted to speak to your thing around the first one you went to being a lot more blissful and this one being excruciating. Because I feel like it'd probably be belief of a lot of people that the more work you do, the easier things get. And my belief on that, I'm not sure if you would agree, that there is a level that our psyche, our intuition knows we can handle at a point in time. And I would offer that back then, you probably wouldn't be able to handle that level of discomfort. And I feel that you're now, because of the amount of work that you've done, you're like intuitively like, I'm ready, I can handle the fuckery of this now. That's my take on why this has gone there, and feels like, no, Blake, I can handle this absolutely excruciating discomfort now. As last time you may have, who knows, you may have just fucking pulled it if it was that bad last time.
To give context before Jay goes on for this question, I would 100% agree with that. Like, I don't know what I envisioned it being last time, but for those that don't know, I did it 5 years ago. I was transitioning from Sydney to Melbourne. I was in an absolute fucking doozy of a place. And yeah, anything, I mean, it's hard, no doubt about that. But if I was to experience 6 days of itchiness last time with the headspace I was in, and really in the big scheme of things, I've always done, I guess, work of some sort, personal development. But 5 years ago was when it really kind of started in terms of self-awareness, introspection. All the personal development work prior to that was like out there. It was like self-improvement, but it wasn't self-mastery as such. So I would 100% agree that I wouldn't have had the capacity to hold what I experienced this time from a restlessness and an irritability. 100% agree. So Jay, coming back to that question, what was the easy and the hard of the format as such?
So a couple of times I actually tried to meditate in my bed. Like the mornings were like, you'd wake up at like 4 a.m., 4:30 in the morning, you'd get up, and you'd be like walking out in the dark, cold. I was in the Blue Mountains, the cold, to this big hole. And it was optional to be there. So often the hall would be maybe a third full. Everyone else is in their beds. And I was like, fuck, I want to try my bed this time. And anytime I tried to meditate in my bed, it was horrific. I thought it was more comfortable for me, but I was like half groggy and like dozy. And I'd be like, but almost like, did I just go to sleep then? It was disgusting. And so I learned, actually, even though it was quote unquote more comfortable in my bed, it was actually way more comfortable to meditate sitting up on this cushion in the hall. Now, my favorite time was lunch, because that was my time where I'd get to eat, and then I'd go out and just walk in the park, in the garden, and have these little moments of bliss as I'm walking through, the garden, looking up at the clouds, just like, oh, and then moving through and look, it's just this beautiful, peaceful experience. But then towards the tail end of lunch, that became some of the hardest for me, because you said, Evan, you loved how you knew it was coming. I knew that after lunch, we had a big chunk of meditation. And at the end of that, there was no dinner. There was one single piece of fruit. So every other block we had, I knew there was like the reward at the end, morning meditation, 2 hours. Ah, yes, breakfast and a little cup of tea, another 3 or 4 hour session in between breakfast and lunch. Oh, the gift of lunchtime, a little walk, something to walk and go work towards. Afternoon, you sit in this room, eat a piece of fruit. And I was like slicing, I'd have a pear, and I would slice it up in all these slices, sprinkle a bit of cinnamon over it, and sit there in the sun and like nibble it and just like try to extend like it was a meal, like nibble this little pear like it was this long meal and be like, beautiful. But weirdly enough, it actually, after a few days, actually became satisfying. I'd finish my pear and be like, oh, that was nice. And I wasn't starving. And I got used to it when I like sliced it and took my time and enjoyed it. I was enjoying this pear so immensely and my little cup of tea with it, or I'll be sitting there looking out at the sunset. And I was like, and it was that sort of appreciation of the small things. And I actually also loved the discourses. So, because that was, so for what discourse was literally SM Goenka who was the guy who created this technique, who is now dead. There was recordings of him, this Indian guy, talking and teaching philosophy, right? So he was a Buddhist, this ties into the Buddhist philosophy, and he was teaching this philosophy. So for me, I loved, because obviously I've studied the Vedic philosophy, I loved understanding the Buddhist and the Vipassana philosophy. And I was like, yeah, and I could see the way it tied in and where there were some slight differences and different words for different things in Sanskrit. And I was like, and for me, that was really, I actually loved the discourse. And that was really, because that was like the learning piece for me, because I was like, cool, I can use this in how I operate. And a lot of it, when I was learning and then practicing, it just reinforced knowledge that I'd studied a while ago. So I actually found that quite interesting. The hours of determination were, I never actually got to a point in the, like some people are like, in day 7, it was blissful. I never experienced like the point where I felt it was easy and blissful. It was always a level of discomfort and pain for me. It was just like, maybe the morning was a bit easier, the afternoon sucked. And when I thought I'd nailed it, like I had one day I was like, ooh, like I went numb from about the neck down in one of the hours of determination. I like crossed my legs, put my arms, and I was like, I'm not moving. And I kind of went numb and I was like, oh, I think I've cracked the code. And next time, agony. I didn't crack the code. And so for me, there was no like, I didn't have a day where this happened, a day where this happened, a day where it became fine. I was just going through waves the whole time. And by the end of it, I was like, let's get me out of here. I'm bored now. Like I'm out. I'm sick. Get me out. Get me out.
I bloody love that. Sparks, what did you notice about your daily mindset? So Janoah spoke about his, and I've noticed, having spent a lot of time with him, he loves some kind of reward on the end of his effort, which is a very common James Clear habits pattern. I think there might be someone who originated it. But what did you notice about your mentality on a daily basis? Was there a school of thought that got you through? Did you have anything? Did you compartmentalize things? Like, what did you notice about your own inner dialogue?
Yeah, I definitely resonate with what Jay said around having the reward. I mean, you always look, my favorite was breakfast, just because I could pick out and know that I could eat as much as I can, and then the meals would gradually get smaller. So, and I just loved the breakfast they offered. It was awesome. So that's what drove me in the morning to get through those first 2 hours. But my mindset was more, okay, 1 hour at a time. Okay, let's get through this next hour. And that's all my focus. Next hour. Okay, we've done that hour. Let's get through the next hour. Great. What do I want to achieve in this next hour? All right. So it's just 1 hour by 1 hour by 1 hour. And then I'd look at the day and be like, okay, only 3 hours left for today, or 4 hours left for today. So I found that just going moment by moment really helped me get through, and just segmenting into just those little small moments rather than looking far ahead. I think that's how I got through it. And it allowed me to concentrate more deeper into each meditation. But I had moments where I was in my room and my mind just wandered off, and I'd ask myself my intuition questions. And I wasn't meditating at all, to be honest. So I had those off times, but at least I knew that, okay, I've got an hour here, an hour there, and just focus on just getting through that next hour and what I can achieve from it. So yeah, that's what got me through it. And it's a great structure to bring back into life, of like, okay, you've set out a structure for the day, then you're just going one by one by one and getting through it. So I found that now that I'm back here, I've created like a structure in my day where I know what I want to get done. And then I just focus it one by one by one, versus how many things can I get done at once, which I used to do. So that's how I kind of went through it.
It's interesting. Sparks, I don't know if you know this. Janoah and I have had a brief chat. Because it was my second one, I didn't get dinner. So I didn't get that reward at the end of that 4 hour block. But what's really interesting listening to you guys, and I didn't intentionally set this mindset, but the mindset that got me through was almost a level of wonder and curiosity as to what was going to come up in the next block. Like, I wonder what I'm going to find out about myself. I wonder what's going to come up. So that was the piece that got me through. And to be honest, there was a level of excitement that came with that. Where I did struggle from a mindset point of view was this real irony in that when I thought about Shani, that's actually when it's such a hard thing to explain, Sparks. I don't know how you went with this, with Bree, but it was almost like this, there was these conflicting parts of me of like joy and just such gratitude and just like love and just this deep pain of like, I've still got 7 days before I see her next. It was this weird thing. So the irony was that whenever I thought about it, I quickly had to come back into like the now. Otherwise, the thought of like, I'm not seeing her for 7 days was like a killer. That was, in all honesty, that was the hardest part of Vipassana for me was not seeing Shani for 10 days. And anyone who's been apart from their partner is like, time apart's hard. It is a completely different ball game when you have no contact with them. Like, cool, you're away, you're interstate, you're overseas, you FaceTime them at night, you send texts, no contact. So that was by far the hardest part for me. But Sparks, for you, from a relationship point of view, what did you notice about the dialogue for you around Bree, your relationship, missing her, those type of things? How did that kind of play out for you?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one because we were both there, and obviously they segregate the men and the women. And we agreed that we can't look at each other, that we weren't going to kind of contact each other. And we really stuck to that. But the problem with that is whenever I'd kind of want to get a sneaky look at her, she wouldn't look at me, or she did the same. And then we both started to create stories about each other of like, oh, fuck, is something shifted in them? Oh, fuck, have I done something wrong? Oh, fuck, are we in trouble here? Oh, fuck, are we done? And you're having all these thoughts. And I'm like, I remember on the last day, I tried to be like sneaky and get her attention, and she gave me nothing. I'm like, oh my God, we're over. Like, we're cooked here. And so when on day 9, when I think day 9 or day 10, I can't remember which one, where we finally come together, I was like, oh, everything's all good. And then from her perspective, she had to, a lot of that came up for her as well. And I won't speak for her, but she had to heal a lot of her stuff with me as well from past relationships that were coming up. So it was actually really healing to be there at the same time and not having that communication. But at the same time, it was so painful because you're like, I really miss them. I wonder how they're going. And as a man, obviously you want to be the provider and the caretaker. You want to make sure that they're okay. So that was really hard going like, oh, fuck, I hope she's okay. And you can't do anything about it. And you're seeing her all the time in that meditation hall and you can't do a thing about it. That's what really stung too. So it was a very interesting experience to go through. But I'd recommend if you're going to do it with your partner, this will be one of the most healing things that you do together. As long as you come together and you create an agreement beforehand of how you're going to tackle it, because having that shared vision and shared kind of rules allowed us to go through what we needed to go through, heal what we need to heal.
Jay, what was so obviously you shared that piece around, what's the language? Being chosen. Outside of that, what was your hardest or darkest kind of thoughts? I haven't actually asked you this question. I don't even know if you want to share it online, but anyway, let's roll with it.
So my darkest thoughts was a fear that I don't make what I'm trying to make work, like business, particularly business wise. That was like that was my dark. The darkest I got was like, what if I can't make this work? What if I'm deluded thinking that there is a next level up from here? So that was when I was in the dark piece. That was scary for me to be like, what if I can't make it work? And even now, if I think about it, I actually haven't really thought about it that much since. I'm like, no, I'm fucking making it work. But there, that was terrifying for me to have this idea of what I'm capable of and what I feel I should be able to do. And then of work and effort I've gone in and things that I've failed with and blah, blah, and be like, cool, I'm so close. But for me, it is like terrifying to think that I can't make the next level work. So that was terrifying. That was actually terrifying for me. And even now when I think about it, it still scares me. I mean, the other piece that I was challenged with, funnily enough, was the physical. I just spent, you and I obviously done, Blake, you done the 10 weeks, and I was in really good physical condition, and I was actually pissed and like, fuck, I can't exercise. I'm going to lose all this work and turn into a slug. And so that was the other pieces of my mind. Like, I was like, initially, I was like, how do I sneak some fucking exercise in here? But once I was in there, the phone didn't bother me. That not one part of me wanted to be on my phone or needed to look at people, needed to speak to anyone. It was just if I could have like trained would have been the piece. But that was my only real dark piece, which I don't know about you boys, but would that scare you?
I'd be shit scared if that. Yeah. Did you try to correct it or did you just sit in it? Like, how did you manage the thoughts?
What I moved away from was indulging in it. I was like, this is just like, let it go. I literally was like, no, next, this isn't my truth. Knowing that focusing too much on that, because in past, a trait would be a negative thought comes up and then you dwell and recycle it. And so for me, it was again, because this is part of the process, right? In Vipassana is when something comes up, whether it is something that we like, it's something that we crave or want to experience, or something that we don't want to experience, the more we react to it, the more we reinforce that reaction or trigger. And so for me, it was like, how can I give it nothing and be like, this is just a little figure and let it go. And that was what I did, as opposed to trying to like bash it away or like that was really trying to step into the teaching of how can you almost like give it no air. And like, the whole where your energy goes is what grows, right? So there was a mixture of giving it nothing. And then I must admit, I would also sometimes then shift to more of a craving. So I'd be like, no, what is a realistic vision I want to place my awareness and attention on? So that was the other thing I would do, which I still now do. Like if I find myself going down a path of like, but what if this, but what if, that's not my truth. This is what I believe and this is what I see happening. And I just move to this as a deeper knowing. And that now has followed through into how I operate in day-to-day life. Because that's the key, right? Is to do these 10 days. And I don't know about you boys, but I haven't maintained any of the Vipassana meditation. I've gone back to my style of meditation, the Vedic and mantra. I initially was doing a few of the 45ers in the afternoons, but that piece was also cut. Part of it was when the dark thoughts come up, what do you do with them? And it's give them no energy and shift to what is a thought of someone who embodies the vision of what you want. What will they think in this moment? And that's what I practice doing.
Sparks, what about you? What did your darkness look like? Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Yeah, it was just those sudden moments where you just hit with a shame-filled memory. And it was just a lot of it was past memories that I even forgot had happened that were filled with shame. And I just remember them hitting me random times during the day. And I'd be like, no, fuck off. No, I don't want to look at that. And then I just had to sit at it and be like, okay, wow, I did that. Or this happened to me. Okay, all right, I'll sit with it, as painful as it was. And you just couldn't run away from it. There was no distractions. You had to sit through it. And I found that these came more so during the times in between the meditations. During the meditations, a lot of thoughts come up, obviously. So you just come back to the practice. But I really wanted to pursue the practice when we're properly doing it, especially when we're in the halls. But the other times where I'm sitting there at lunch or I'm sitting there in between meditation, that's when a lot of this stuff hit me, which is really interesting. And yeah, that's just how dark it got. It just a lot of shame filled that I was holding on to. And I found that the biggest theme for this Vipassana for me was self-forgiveness, giving me an opportunity to forgive myself for so many little things that, like I was a kid, as a teenager, like, come on, no, it wasn't too bad, but I held against myself. And I think that's what allowed so much freedom after it, is just like unshackling all those bad memories, painful memories. And now when it comes up, I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember that, but that's okay now. The sting of it's gone. And the retreat allowed me to face and allowed me to let go of the sting of so many painful memories. I still reckon there's so many still there, but the ones that came up, like, I'm proud that I was able to work through it. And they aren't coming up for me now as I progress in life, especially when you take on new things, right? You take on new ventures and bigger roles and projects. These are going to come up. So allowing myself to go through it and using self-forgiveness has helped me put me in a better position to take the next level in my career, relationship life.
It's interesting because the three of us do a lot of reflecting, just general kind of day to day. And I dare say there'd be a lot of people whose greatest fear in doing something like this is sitting with their own thoughts. And I totally understand it. Like, fair play to those that do sit with their own thoughts, because it's one of the gnarliest things that you can do. And whether you're a beginner to, this kind of introspection, self-reflection, or whether you're been doing it for years, you'd be hard pressed to find many people that don't have some kind of darkness creep up on them in their 10 days. And that's why I think it's one of the most courageous things to do is a Vipassana, because you ain't getting away from it. You just can't. And even, as someone who I feel like I'm probably in the best place I've ever been in life, just about, I still had some darkness, some shame, similar to you, Sparks, which, for those that don't know, shame is the lowest of all vibration. So it's really cool if you can move through shame and kind of up your vibration. But also, it was really interesting. I think I told Janoah about this. I don't think I've told you, Sparks. I had 3 dreams about someone close to me dying. And that is not fucking ideal when you can't do anything about it. So I found myself contending between it's just a dream, dude, and coming out, turning my phone on and getting a message. Like, it was fucked. Interestingly, I came out, I had a fear that this person had had a heart attack. There's some health stuff that I've encouraged him to kind of take care of. And interestingly, when I came out, I actually had a message from him saying, hey, I met one of our friends, Clinton. Oh, do you know Clint McCauley? Sparks?
Yep.
Yeah, cool. You do. Obviously, Janoah does as well. So we're quite close with Clint. I found, this is a fucking random story. So I get a message from this person going, hey, I've started working with Clinton. He said he knows you. I was like, instant relief, because Clint's really good with kind of health and getting back on track. And he found him through a Facebook ad, of all places. And he's like, there I am thinking he's died of a heart attack, three dreams, come out. So literally, other than Chani, it's the next message I get, hey, I've started working with Clint. He said he knows you. And I was like, oh my God, like, that is wild from the universe. So instantly I'm like, awesome. Not only are you still alive, but you're, taking care of your health, working with someone that I know and I trust. And I was like, oh, that is gold. But again, coming back to the dark thoughts, I don't care how much work you've done, you'd be hard pressed not to have some kind of dark thoughts in Vipassana. Jay, as you move forward in 2024, seeing what you've seen through Vipassana, having the insights, the clarity, like, what's your kind of big takeaway?
So, to be honest, what it showed for me is that there's one small little piece of the puzzle that is kind of almost like keeping these things from going next level. Now, I haven't solved that piece of the puzzle yet, because this is the piece of it. Because it's not new. I think we've even discussed it before on podcasts, right? This isn't new. And so my challenge is working out exactly what's gonna flick it over. So, initially I've done a bit of parts work with it. So now I'm like in the process of, while taking action on where I want to go in those areas, it's like it's the investigation of, well, what is the piece, what's the work I need to do to unravel this little knot that's kind of knots in my like kink in the hose almost sort of thing. And so that's it for me. Like that's a big piece of it. Like I'm really clear on like where I'm going, what I'm focusing on, all the work I'm doing. It's like that little piece of what's the modality, and I'm still not certain on it yet, to be honest. That's something that hasn't come clear to me yet. But there's a few things that I will try. It's things that I've tried before, that I've worked with before, etc. And I'm still that piece. I'm not sure what it is that's going to be the final, like, unlocker of it. But I feel it's going to be a combination of multiple different things. But it's just like a bit of a knowing. Like it gave me a lot of certainty around, like, since then, around like business direction. Like I've just gone in and it's already momentum shifted so quickly moving forward. And so I'm feeling really expansive and like I feel excited. That's kind of my energy right now with that one little piece. And it's kind of like, it's the unknown that's scary, right? And now I'm like, cool, I know what the piece is. And it's a solid piece, but cool. So it's kind of a bit of a level of confidence as well, because there's no, like, when things aren't working, we know that well, don't we, guys? We're like, what the fuck?
We're
Like,
not.
what? You know what I mean? I feel like I'm like, cool. At least when I go to someone, I'm like, this is what I'm here for. Let's go. That's what it's given me moving forward.
I just want to reinforce something there as well, which I don't want people to underestimate, is between us, and our circles are pretty tight these days. We're all like 0.1 of a degree of separation. We have the most talented healers, therapists, shamans, whatever, available to us. And not only that, but we've got friends that can reflect back to us the most emotionally intelligent people, like literally on planet Earth. And yet Janoah still has a piece that and I want this to kind of be a positive as well, but with access to everything that we've got, there are some pieces that don't just like fall away. Like Janoah's known about this piece for, like, it's been the forefront of your mind, Janoah, I reckon, for 18 months, but you've known about it for longer than that. And still, psychedelics, Vipassana, heart's work, energy work, and it's still like holding on for dear life. So for some of you who, you might find yourself irritated that something's come back up and it's shown up in a different way, or you haven't quite got to the bottom of it, trust me when I say we have access to the best of the best. And here is Janoah still like tangled in this piece that will unlock something unbelievable on the other side, but he's still like wrestling with it. So I just kind of want to reinforce that for those of you who might, find yourself struggling with a big piece as well.
It's true. And it's just like, it's like, how important is it to you? Like, I'm determined as fuck. Like, I'm not letting this go. Like, what's next? What's the next piece? If you boys like, have you tried this? Like, send it. But for me, it's really that determination piece. I'm like, I'm determined because I've done so much work on other areas that are now starting to fall away. And like, what's next? It's just like, you wipe the blood off your face and the next battle. And we're like layers of an onion, aren't we? Like, it's just going to keep peeling. And I'm sure when I move through this, another little beautiful rosebud is going to pop its little head out for me to work through. And it's just how it is. We don't ever get to a point where we're fixed. It's a constant process of evolution.
I do think you actually asked us for like tips almost on like where to go next. And I do think that if you were to play like a submissive role in a BDSM
You still
kind of thing, that might be the answer to your problem.
Yeah, for the first time
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm just throwing some ideas around.
yeah. Can I borrow your pegging strap?
You can. That'll be $15 to rent for the night. Mr. Spargo, biggest takeaway from Vipassana for you?
Yep. So from a personal clarity point of view, what I was able to uncover is a really clear career direction. So the big one for me was specializing in men's work and working with men and helping them heal, helping to step into their masculinity. And that's just, it just lights me up. That's all I want to do. And now that I've focused on it and I've already seen instant reward, and when you really you are meant to do something, it's just the resources, the mental downloads, the guidance that you're given all comes to you. And I've just seen that firsthand right now. So I think that's the biggest takeaway. And that's the number one thing I wanted to get out of it. And I got it. So super pleased with that. On the other side of the actual Vipassana practice, I think the importance of the awareness of when I'm distracting myself. I now can catch myself when I'm distracting myself. When I'm sitting on my phone, I'm like, I am avoiding something here right now by watching this crap, right? Or scrolling, whatever. I now can pick myself up and being like, okay, I'm distracting, and call it out. I'm distracting myself from something. And then finding time again to go inwards. They talk so much about in the self-development world around all the answers are within. For people who haven't actually gone within properly, it could be nonsense. Like, it sounds nonsense. Like, how the fuck are you supposed to find something within? But if you actually practice it, the answers come to you just like that if you allow space to do it. So you don't have to go out and do a Vipassana to go inwards and find an answer, but creating a practice where there is no distractions and you give yourself some time to be inwards and allow space for something to pop up from your psyche and just watch it, observe it, and let it go, you're going to find what you're looking for. And sometimes before you find what you're looking for, you've got to get through the gunk or the junk or the old memories, whatever comes up in order to see it. So just understanding the process of going inwards, you're not just going to go in and get it. You need to sit through what's in the way first. And what's in the way is usually these old memories, these old emotions that have been suppressed, and these these sometimes traumas, sometimes points of misery. And once you get through that, clarity comes as a result of that. So creating a practice consistently doesn't have to be like an hour sittings 2 times per day as what they told us to do as homework or as like after it, but just finding time during the day to meditate or just to sit with one's own thoughts. So that's what I'll take away moving forward. I don't want to do too much, but just those slight switches will make a big difference over the long term.
Yeah, I love that. I would say off the back of that irritability and inner restlessness, my word for this year ended up being discipline. And it was a combination of what I experienced there, but also when Shani and I were driving down to Melbourne, we listened to a lot of Tom Bilyeu. And his superpower, I think, I don't know if it's ever been kind of spoken about on his podcast, is his ability to just execute on whatever. And Sparks, you've complimented me previously on my ability to execute, but I do still find that my emotions and my feelings play a role in executing. And it's this, I feel this dance this year is around soothing the inner restlessness and the irritability, and just in those little moments, discipline. Like Tom, without becoming all in my head and too analytical and too logical and just doing it hard from that place. But Tom, just the way that he spoke of it, it's all like, I don't know anyone else that does it the way Tom Bilyeu does it, but he's like, oh, here's what I need to do. Just go and do it. I'm like, cool. That is so amazing that there's no human component in there. There's no self-sabotage. There's no your feelings driving behavior. Like he looks at addiction and goes, oh, you want to stop alcohol? Stop. Do you know what I mean? Like his ability to just do with nothing else influencing is unbelievable. And I've noticed myself just with the word discipline, just having those little moments. So one for me that Janoah has lived with me obviously for a long time, so he knows this. Food, despite me being in okay shape, is one area where emotions and feelings can play a role. And just to go like in that split second moment to choose discipline over how I'm feeling, or to choose. I was literally talking to a client about it before. Oh, it's probably about 100 grams of potato. Dude, get the fucking scales out. It's 1 meter away from you and choose discipline in that moment. Like, to choose discipline each and every day on just the small things is a really interesting practice. So that would be mine of soothing the irritability and the inner restlessness and choosing discipline in the like subtleness. Because overall, people would say, "Oh, you're pretty disciplined," but there's little things that I know that I get away with because they're not a big deal, that are like the 1 to 3%. Food's a big one, and as going through a bit of a shred at the moment, that is, in all honesty, food and social media, which neither of you will be surprised, but choosing discipline not to post when I'm in any kind of heightened state. Those are my two areas that feel like the weakest links. And for that reason, I chose discipline as my word for the year.
Going through a shred. Oh,
I know. It's hard. It's
yeah.
really hard. I don't have as much, mate, compared to the food issues I used to have previously. I don't think I've shared this story with you guys before, but like previously, if I went two days of really good food, I would have this inner craving that I could not get rid of until it was satisfied with some kind of sweet tooth. And I'm like, this must be what it's like on a very small scale to manage addiction. I couldn't get it out of my, like, I could do anything and I would just have this inner craving of something sweet, and that's fallen away. I didn't work on it directly, but I think it fell away with some other stuff that I was working on. But it's still like this. I'm closer, but there's still like there's inner dialogue and inner things going on around food that still play a role. And I think Spargs, you've spoken about some of the stuff that you've had previously as well. So that's where I'm at. Boys, final thoughts? Anything you'd like to share for people that are interested in Vipassana, interested in,
Well, I guess people at home would like to know that I've overcome the trauma of living with you and I've started buying old gold chocolate again.
Have you?
Got a block in the fridge.
Motherfucker, I'm coming up to steal it.
Well, I guess specific to Vipassana, it's like I sat with it for years, and I've taught meditation. So one of those things is, I think with all this work is, don't just do it because you think you should or like force it. I feel it's one of those things where, like, yes, there's that line between am I copping out and making excuses? Find the line, but also like you got to be ready. Like, what are you doing it for? Like, you got to have a clear, like, why am I doing this? And even people that I've spoken to within our group, some of them have like, look, you're dealing like people like I'm doing a Vipassana this year. I was like, where did that come from? He's like, yeah, no, I'm ready. I'm ready. It's one of those things with this is like, have it in your radar, have a why behind you while you're doing it, and the time will come where it kind of drops in and it's like, we're on here, as opposed to force, because you got to be like ready for it. That's my thing with that.
Yeah, beautiful.
Force.
Sparks.
Yeah, I think it's not only is it a meditation practice and kind of a challenge, but also it's time to yourself. It's time on your own. It's time to recharge. 10 days. If you can manage your schedule that it's okay for you to be away for 10 days, it will do a lot for you, not only from the meditation sense and challenging yourself, but also just what's important for you, resting, rejuvenating. What are you learning about your values, how you best serve yourself? All this comes to you in that time. So don't just see it as like, I need to go here and do meditation for 10 hours a day, but it's also a time for yourself to recharge, to reconnect with who you are, find out what's important, set yourself up for the next stage of life, really. And if you've had a challenging couple of years, I know everyone had a challenging 2023, maybe one in 2024 doing a Vipassana, will create that point of difference so that you don't fall back into old habits. You don't stay in the same position as last year, because I think that's a wasted year. So look at this as not only a meditation thing, but also something that helps serve you in terms of self-care and yeah, rejuvenating your life.
And even just quickly wanted to add to that around a piece that I hear a lot of people say is like, oh, I could never do that. There's no way I could do that. You can. It's a fucking story. And there are
Mhm.
people who are in this, and you'd be like, yeah, it's easy for you guys to say, you guys do all the work. There were majority of the people that were in the Vipassana with me have done zero quote unquote work, and we're in there and fucking getting it done. And like people, I was like, wow, like fucking respect. So I hear a lot of people like, again, no, there's no way I can do that. Oh, how'd you do that? Right, right. It's all story. It's amazing what your body can do if you shift that internal dialogue of like, well, I can if I want to. It's a big enough motivation.
That was going to be my point. Is it's hard. Like it's hard. All three of us have said it's hard, but like, what worth? What do you get? You know, by just doing life easy, like all the good shit. There's two examples right there. You know, Jay obviously had more confirmation than clarity in terms of his piece, but Evan and Bree had clarity on their purpose, but it came like it was hard. They had to go and do a 10-day Vipassana. So if you're looking for answers in your life, you may have to put yourself in a hard position, e.g. go and do Vipassana. Like, oh, that sounds hard. Of course it's fucking hard. Like, and a lot of the good shit is, a lot of the big transformational stuff is hard. Like psychedelics is hard. I don't know anyone who's like, oh, today I'm going to go do ayahuasca and I'm going to have heaps of fun. Like, it's not fun. I know 1,001 other ways to have fun, and it doesn't include ayahuasca. So the thing for you to weigh up is, are you prepared to do 10 hard days in order to find your purpose, find a deeper understanding of who you are? Or are you just going to avoid the hard and spend the next 5 years like semi-miserable because you're not aligned with your purpose, or semi-miserable because you don't know where you're going? Like, short-term pain, totally, for long-term gain, or just live an okay life. And in particular, this podcast is obviously for men and women, but in particular for men, if we're talking on an evolutionary level, men's deepest need is for purpose and mission, women more so love and connection. Like, dude, by you not being aligned with your purpose, it's not only impacting you, it's impacting your partner, your kids, friends, family. So for whatever reason, you can't bring yourself to do it for you. Like, think about your son, your daughter, who has to see a half-assed bloke walking around and living life. And you're there going, flaccid doodle. Like, you're there telling your kids to go and like dream big and do big, and you're doing life half. So if for whatever reason you can't bring yourself to like do it for you, because it's hard, we've all three of us have said that numerous times, think about the impact that you doing life half-assed is having on other people as well. That's my rant. That's the finish, lads.
Love it.
Good to see your pretty faces. God bless.